But let's get into it, starting about where Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore takes over the 1st Battalion, 7th Cavalry. Going back to the book. On Monday, June 29th, as scheduled, I took command of my battalion. I was 42 years old, a West Point graduate of the class of 1945, with 19 years commissioned service, including 14-month tour in Korea. Combat tour in Korea. In a brief talk to the troops afterward, I told them that this was a good battalion, but it would get better. I will do my best, I said, and I expect the same from each of you. Before taking command, I had a long talk with the most important man in any battalion, the Sergeant Major. Basil L. Plumley, 44 years old and a 6'2" bear of a man, hailed from West Virginia. The men sometimes called him Old Iron Jaw, but never in his hearing. Plumley was a 2-war man and wore master parachute wings with his 5 combat jump stars. He was what the young airborne types called a 4-jump bastard. Plumley had survived all 4 combat jumps of the 82nd Airborne Division in World War II, Sicily and Salerno in 1943, and then in 1944, D-Day at Normandy and Market Garden in the Netherlands. For that matter, he also made 1 combat parachute jump in the Korean War with the 187th Airborne Infantry Regiment. He ended World War II a buck sergeant and was promoted to sergeant major in 1961. So let's think about that for a minute. Let's think about that. I mean, we've definitely talked about Normandy. We've definitely talked about Market Garden. He jumped into both those and jumped into Sicily and Salerno and jumped into combat in the Korean War. Unbelievable. Going back to the book, the Sergeant Major was a no bullshit guy who believed, as I did, in tough training, tough discipline, and tough physical conditioning. To this day, there are veterans of the battalion who are convinced that God may look like Sergeant Major Basil Plumley, but he isn't nearly as tough as the Sergeant Major on sins small or large. Privately, I thanked my lucky stars that I had inherited such a treasure. I told Sergeant Major Plumley that he had unrestricted access to me at any time on any subject he wished to raise. After the ceremony, the company commanders and the battalion staff got a look at their new boss and a word on my standards. They were fairly simple. Only first place trophies will be displayed, accepted, or presented in this battalion. Second place in our line of work is defeat of the unit on the battlefield and death for the individual in combat. No fat troops or officers. Decision-making will be decentralized. Push the power down. It pays off in wartime. Loyalty flows down as well. I check up on everything. I am available day or night to talk with any officer of this battalion. Finally, the Sergeant Major works only for me and takes orders only from me. He is my right-hand man. So he's setting the stage. Pretty interesting. No, only first place trophies. Second place, no. Not happening here. Back to the book. The officers of my new battalion were the usual great Army mix of men who had come to their jobs from West Point, ROTC, Officer Candidate School, and military schools like the Citadel. Most of the young second lieutenants had come through OCS and college ROTC programs. There were 3 rifle companies in the battalion, Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie companies, each at full strength, supposed to have 6 officers and 164 enlisted men. They were my maneuver elements. Each rifle company had 3 rifle platoons, plus 1 platoon of 3 81mm mortar squads for fire support. Each rifle platoon, in turn, had 3 rifle squads, plus a weapon squad of 2 M60 machine guns for fire support. So there's the breakdown right there. They also had another combat support company, Delta Company, which had a recon platoon, a mortar platoon, and an anti-tank platoon. And they converted the unneeded anti-tank platoons into machine gun platoon for duty in Vietnam because there was no enemy tanks going up against. So that's what the battalion was looking like.